This year marks the second time in a row that the United States has failed to win at the FIBA World Cup. In 2019, they failed and came in 7th place. And this year, they lost to Lithuania and Germany and Canada. So the days of the United States just dominating everyone in basketball, like the 92 Dream Team and the Redeem Team in 2008, that era is coming to an end, because for the past 2 decades now, other countries have been catching up. With the implementation of basketball in other countries and international stars playing in the NBA and basketball becoming more popular and popular as the year go by, other countries are starting to take basketball seriously, and they're giving the United States a run for their money. Now, I know the sentiment on Twitter for the last week has been, well, the United States didn't actually send their best player. They sent D-leaguers. They sent babies, basically, right? There weren't actually any superstars, because if there were, everything would have been different. But that's not the reason why the United States lost. The United States lost because of really 2 reasons. And those 2 reasons, the last one is why it won't, in a couple of years, even maybe in the Olympics next year, it won't matter if they send LeBron James. Because word has come out that LeBron James is putting up this super team, this Avengers-like team with Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry and Devin Booker, and everyone is going to galvanize together, and they're going to go show the world just who's in power. But they failed to realize why the United States failed in the first place. Like I said, the number one reason why the United States failed in the first place was because more countries are starting to catch up in terms of basketball. Countries like Lithuania has always been into basketball. Spain has always been into basketball and has gotten really good. Spain won the FIBA World Cup in 2019. Germany won it this year. They're getting good, right? They're really good. France, really good as well. So those countries are getting more and more players in the NBA, right? And it's arousing more and more interest in their own countries and inspiring more and more to pick up a basketball and start playing. And the more people that pick up a basketball within your country, the bigger the pool that you have to select a player to play for the national team. And that's happening every single time these international players start to take over the NBA. As we've seen in the last few years, we've seen the top 3 best players in the NBA right now, you could argue, are all foreign. Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, and Nikola Jokic. All within top 5 players in the NBA, all are European. What does that tell you? What kind of effect will that have on Europe? Well, people now in Europe that are watching stars in the NBA that can speak their own language and communicate to them, and they can relate better with them, they start to find basketball a little bit more cooler. They turn on the Denver Nuggets game and they'll watch it. And when the Denver Nuggets win and Nikola Jokic is up there with a Serbian flag, it kind of inspires people in Serbia to not only just care about soccer like Europe does. It's the same thing with Slovenia for Luka Doncic. Same thing with Giannis Antetokounmpo for Greece. Same thing with Joel Embiid. Basketball starts to get more and more interesting and people start to pick it up. And I can't forget about my own country, Canada. Canada just handed the United States an L, a very embarrassing loss. Why? Because Canada has the second most NBA players in the world after the United States, right? So there's these pools of basketball players, really elite basketball players that are coming up, right, around the world. And other leagues are starting to get good. Europe League is starting to get good. The league down in Australia is really getting good. LeVar Ball vouched for it after seeing his son play in Australia, LaMelo Ball. That's a component of why the world is catching up to the United States. But also another reason that's not talked about is this. The NBA is straying further and further away from real basketball. Although you can have the best NBA players in the world like the United States, soon enough, if the NBA continues in the same path that it's going right now, having the best NBA players won't translate to having the best players worldwide. Why? Because the rules that the NBA implement is so bizarre, it's starting to become out of place, out of hand, that it's almost starting to become a different game. And I call international basketball real basketball because they haven't changed the rules. But if you watch the NBA 2019 and 2009, it almost looks like a different league, right? When you can watch James Harden take 4 steps back for a jumper and call it a step back, but it was 4 step backs and the refs won't call it, that's not going to translate onto the international level. On the international level, he's getting called. So the effectiveness of James Harden in the NBA becomes less so in international. Same thing with Joel Embiid. When you watch Joel Embiid, his points, when he's getting his points, it's these pump fakes, it's these baiting weird foul calls that will never get called in international basketball. And you saw last year the NBA try to curb that, where they cracked down on the pump fake, the foul baiting. They said, we're not going to be calling that anymore because players abused it. Yeah, it was cool at one point when Dwayne Wade was doing it. Kobe would do it. It's been turned into, I'm going to pump fake and I'm going to wait for the player to jump into me, then I'm going to actually initiate the contact. And it's not the right way to play basketball. And so they don't get called, that doesn't get called in international basketball. And if that doesn't get called in international basketball, and you're used to NBA rules, and NBA rules is straying from real basketball, you become less effective against other countries that are playing real basketball, that are actually getting the right calls. They're going to call you on an extra step. They're going to actually call you out when you foul bait, right? They're not going to give you easy baskets like they do to Joel Embiid in the NBA. And Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic have all spoken on this phenomenon. Luka said it's way easier to score in the NBA than it is in Europe because of the rules. And so that's why Luka Doncic just dominates. That's why he was able to dominate at such a young age, because he played in Europe professionally for Real Madrid. And when he came into the league, it was almost like barbecue chicken for him. Same thing Nikola Jokic said. It's definitely easier to play in the NBA than it is to play in Europe. And so if the NBA continues in the path that it's going, the NBA, having the best NBA players won't necessarily mean having the best basketball players. And that's why, even though the news came out that LeBron James is assembling this Avengers-like team to go avenge the United States for the humiliation they've taken in the last 4 years, will that still translate? If you have James Harden there and he's still making 3 steps and getting called, will he still be effective? It might not be. And so other countries catch up exponentially, because now it's like, well, we have more players that are actually good at basketball, and the rules, we actually know the rules better. And we actually follow the rules, and we actually do the right thing, where the American basketball players aren't actually doing that. And so that's why the United States is starting to diminish on the world level in terms of basketball, and people are questioning, and people are saying, wow, that's crazy. Like Dillon Brooks dropped 39 points on Team USA. Dillon Brooks, the same Dillon Brooks that was the villain in the NBA season. And it's only going to get worse. This is the worst the world will ever be at basketball. Basketball is only going to grow more around the world, meaning more players are going to pick up the basketball, and other countries will have a bigger pool to select for their national teams. And so the United States, the days of them being uber dominant are dwindling, and they're going to come to an end. And so that's why I think the United States is the best now, right? But will they be the best in the next Olympics, not the Paris Olympics, right? Because remember, they sent their babies to the Olympics and they got washed. What happens when Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James all retire and they're not able to play anymore? These guys that got whooped this time around are the ones that are going to be representing the United States in years to come. And so the future isn't looking bright for the United States. And so that's why I think the U.S. is in trouble in terms of basketball. And so those are just my thoughts, what I think of this whole situation. If you like this kind of content, guys, make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a like, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. And aside from that, thanks for watching.